My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my list of the best movies of 2023. And yes, I know it's the end of March. This video is very late, but because I like to make sure I've watched every 2023 movie I'm going to watch before I make this list. So let's get into it. And my 10th favorite movie of 2023 is Hell House LLC, The Carmichael Manor. Now, I'll admit, there is some amateurish qualities to this movie. Like, the interviews feel too polished and too clean, and it starts off a little rough, but my goodness, when this movie wants to be scary, it just fully delivers. Like, this movie is terrifying. Like, it scared the shit out of me. It just builds this sense of dread so incredibly well, and you feel uncomfortable, you feel uneasy, and you're just on the edge of your seat. Like, I was just completely engaged in everything going on, and my body had chills the entire time. It's very atmospheric, and it's just so well crafted by Stephen Cognetti. There's even a scene in broad daylight that got to me. So, yes, it's a generic haunted house movie, but it's a very scary and effective one, so that's why I love it. My ninth favorite movie of 2023 is God is a Bullet. And this is a movie I liked, but the more I sit with it, the more I love it. Like, this plot of a preacher who is on the search for his daughter is really well done because you've got him coming from a classic conservative background. He's a preacher and he has to work together with someone who has had a terrible life. And just the two different perspectives, the two vastly different characters, and the relationship that forms between them, I thought was explored incredibly well. And on top of that, I thought the fact that the preacher had to get tattoos all over his body and change his appearance for good on this search was such a unique but effective note of this movie. Like, there's no coming back from this, and I really appreciate how the movie explored his character. And by the end of it, I thought it was very sweet. It was very emotional. Like, I was surprised at how effective the ending of this movie was. And I also love how this movie can be hard hitting, it can be emotionally draining, but then it can also be an over the top bloodfest of a movie. It can be schlocky, and the two different tones are balanced so perfectly. Nicolas Coster-Waldau, I think, gives a great performance. He carries this movie incredibly well, but it's Maiki Minwo who really stood out to me. I think this is her best work yet. She's simply phenomenal here. And Carl Glossman and Jamie Foxx also did a really good job. So, yes, this movie is incredibly long, and yes, everybody else seems to hate it, but I really love this movie. My eighth favorite movie of 2023 is Oppenheimer. How weird is it that an actual good movie won Best Picture? Like, it doesn't happen often, but it happened here, and it's well deserved. Now, I will say this isn't going to be a movie I rewatch a bunch, and it can drag every now and again, but I still think the craftsmanship on display is just top notch. Christopher Nolan did a fantastic job here, and it just has this epic scale to it. The movie is beautifully shot, the sound is great, the score by Ludwig Göransson is fantastic. I know I said in my review I was let down by it, but I take that back. The music is really great. And there is just some phenomenal moments. The Trinity test, outstanding. The gymnasium scene, outstanding. Like, those moments remind me why I love movies. And I love the use of black and white and the use of colors and how they represent different points of views or objectivity against subjectivity, and it's just really well done. It could have been a convoluted mess, but you can still follow along. I also think the writing is just great. Like, so much of this movie is just people talking, but it manages to be compelling all the way throughout. Um, Thematically, I think the idea of this invention being inevitable is really interesting, and how anything that gets created will be used, and how much of it is due to one man, and just I thought there was a lot of substance here, and the note the movie lets you sit with is a very effective way to end the movie. You also got great performances from Cillian Murphy, who carries this movie so perfectly. Florence Pugh, who I think did a really great job in her short screen time. Robert Downey Jr. is great. Jason Clarke, I think, does a really great job. Josh Hartnett, I liked. Matt Damon's very good. And Emily Blunt has one great scene, but I still find her Oscar nomination to be curious. So, yes, great movie. I'm glad it won Best Picture. Moving on. My seventh favorite movie of 2023 is Cobweb. And this movie actually came out the same weekend as Barbenheimer, but nobody saw it, nobody talked about it, and it's a damn shame because this is such a great, unique movie. And I love how you're never quite sure what's going on. Like, is it a monster movie? Is it about these abusive parents? Is it about this kid being corrupted? Like, you're constantly guessing, trying to figure out what's going on, and it just fully delivers by the end. Yes, it's very silly, but that's what I loved about it. It's very entertaining, and it's just a very memorable movie. So I love the ambition behind it. I think it's atmospheric. I think it's really effective, and it's incredibly well directed by Samuel Borden. It has a fairy tale kind of vibe to it. I love the look and feel. It feels very Halloweeny, like the perfect movie to watch just in the middle of October. And I also think all the performances are great. Lizzie Kaplan, Woody Norman, but especially Anthony Starr. His performance just keeps you on edge, and yeah, like this movie, if you want to watch something different, then I definitely recommend it. And yes, moving on. My sixth favorite movie of 2023 is yet another hot take because everybody hates this movie. It got bad reviews, and I saw this movie multiple times in theaters. This movie just completely worked for me, and it's The Nun 2. I think the storyline with Maurice, Kate, and Sophie was a very good foundation for everything going on. Like, when things escalate, I actually was invested because I've come to care for these characters and their relationship. I thought it had some nice emotion in it. And I also like how you've got this story of Sister Irene trying to figure out what's going on, but there's also an aspect of her character where she has to give up on this man who she loves because she's a nun. It's part of her vows. You've also got Sister Deborah, who's trying to learn how to believe and just trying to make sense of her new direction in life, and I thought that was well explored. So the script really worked for me, but I thought the direction by Michael Chavez was very strong. This movie is so beautifully shot. It just has this nice gothic atmosphere, and just the shots that linger, really effective, and I love the environment that's brought to life. You spend the first two acts getting to know this location, this school. So when things eventually escalate, you know where everything and everyone is. So that was well built up to. And I think there were some really well done moments. I love the opening scene with the soccer ball in the hallway. I love that shot of Maurice leaving the church as the nun's shadow collapses into him. I love the newsstand scene. That was very unique and very effective. The scene with the nun in the stairway, I love. Like, I love the way that scene is shot. And then we get to the last act, which is just bananas in the best way possible. It's thrilling, it's goofy, it's intense, and it's just everything I want from one of these movies. And I also love how suddenly it ends. So, yeah, like, it might not be anything new, it might not be the greatest movie ever made, but I think it's a very entertaining movie. I have fun with it. I've watched it plenty of times already, and I guess I'm on an island with that one. By the way, The Nun 2 is written by Akira Kupo, and speaking of Akira Kupo, my fifth favorite movie of 2023 is Megan. Yeah, Akira Kupo is just one of my favorite screenwriters right now, but I feel like this is the start of a new iconic franchise. And I mean that in a very positive way. Like, this movie is trying to do lots and it's able to do it all so seamlessly. It can be tense, it can be funny, it can be campy, but it's also very psychologically effective. Like, the commentary on iPad parenting, I thought was very thoughtful. How this aunt is put in charge of this kid and she just leaves the parenting up to this warbot, and how the kid ends up forming an emotional attachment to this warbot instead of her. I love that entire plot. Like, psychologically, it gets under my skin. And like I said, it can be tense every now and again, but then it's also so silly and it just has the perfect tone. And I love the way Megan is brought to life. She's an iconic character already, and I just found it to be perfectly handled. I also thought the performances by Allison Williams and Violet McGraw were really fantastic. So, this movie's smart, effective, tense, fun, just a fantastic movie all around, and that's why it's on this list. Then we get to my fourth favorite movie of 2023, and it's Thanksgiving. This movie I loved. For a movie like this, you expect it to begin with someone getting killed by the villain, but this movie begins in a very unique but effective manner. I thought it managed to be both disturbing and hilarious in a very dark way. So I appreciate the ambition right off the gate, and then the movie just continues that greatness. The movie has a good sense of humor, whether it's the video being made at the very start or the guy who's making a speech about Thanksgiving and how he hates it, and then he wipes his tears to show with his shirt to show everyone his abs. That was hilarious. The exaggerated character cliches I thought worked really well, and this movie also manages to be brutal. Like, that scene with the girl's face on the freezer door, I love. You've also got this trampoline scene, which is really great. This scene with a buzzsaw, which was effective. The scene with the corn on the cob piercer in the girl's ear, that was really great. But then we get to the scene where the one character is cooked alive, and you're just like, holy shit, this is disturbing, this is messed up. Like, that entire dinner scene reminded me of Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the best way possible. Like, it is a truly horrific and disturbing scene, and I loved it so much. I also love how tense this movie can be, whether it's the main character getting chased in the school, or the parade scene is really great. But my favorite is when the stepmom is sneaking around and she's actually acting intelligent. That was fantastic. I think the cast does a really good job with Patrick Dempsey being the standout. I think Eli Roth directs this movie so perfectly. He's able to balance the different tones just to perfection. And I like the whodunit angle as well. So this movie just gave me everything I wanted from a slasher movie. I thought it was very entertaining, it was memorable, it was fucked up, it was funny, it was tense, it was just almost perfect. So that's why it's number 4. Then my third favorite movie is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And Kelly Freeman Craig does such a great job directing this movie. this time period is brought to life so perfectly. And I love how she just showcases this female experience. You can feel how personal it is, but at the same time, even as a dude, there's ideas here that anyone can relate to about wanting to grow up and discovering who you are and who you want to be. And even the way the movie deals with religion, like it deals with all of these heavy subject matters in a very accessible manner. And I was really impressed by just how smart and how thoughtful this movie was. It's also just loaded with emotion. There's just so many scenes that get me in the feels. Like when Margaret's at the church and she's talking to the priest, that was a great moment. Or well, she's just crying after everything escalates with her family. Or, there's just so many great effective moments, and I love the note this movie ends on. Just, are you there, God? Thanks. Thanks a lot. And then you've got Hans Zimmer's score playing, which is very underrated. I love the music in this movie, but then The Wind by Cat Stevens plays, and it's just perfection. I love it. It leaves you on such a feel-good note, and I thought all the characters had a level of depth to them. I thought the movie was really funny, and the performances are outstanding. The fact that nobody got an Oscar nomination for this movie is just absurd. Abby Whittle-Fordson, excellent, amazing performance. Rachel McAdams is great. That scene where she's talking about her family disowning her is just so heartbreaking, and she delivers it so authentically. Elle Graham, I thought, did a great job. Benny Safdie, Kathy Bates, just I love this movie. I think it's such an emotional, mature, entertaining movie. It just gives you everything you could want from a movie like this. And this movie was not made for me, but it just fully worked. So that's why it's number 3. My second favorite movie of 2024 is Landscape with Invisible Hand. I just rewatched this movie, and it's even better than I gave it credit for. This movie, it just deserved so much more attention than it actually got. Like nobody has seen it. It got mediocre reviews, but man, it's truly an amazing movie. And let's begin talking about the performances. Asante Black, I think, is great. He carries this movie so incredibly well, and he just has this likable personality to him. Kaylee Wadgels, great. I love her here. I loved her in Boys Afraid. Great new actress on the rise. Tiffany Haddish gives her best performance easily here. I was really impressed by her. Brooklyn McKenzie, I thought, did a really great job. Josh Hamilton, I thought, was really fantastic. And Michael Gandolfini, I thought, did a really good job as well. So the entire cast stands out, and it's very well directed by Corey Finley. I love the B-movie vibes it has, and the creature design and the way they communicate is so unique, and it just completely worked for me. I also love the score by Michael Abels. I thought it was really fantastic and elevates this movie. The soundtrack choices, especially the song by Skeeter Davis, The End of the World, great. But what really makes me love this movie is the script, because this movie is weird. It is out there. It is ambitious. The way it turns into it starts off as a love story, and then it just constantly evolves into these outlandish ideas. But there's so much on this movie's mind that it always still feels grounded regardless. Like, it's funny, it's over the top, but I also think it's loaded with emotion. Like, there's a scene early on where a teacher loses his job and kills himself, and it's very effective. And then there's a scene where the school closes down, and now they all just have to learn from home. And there's something about that just hits me. Like, I think this movie does have emotion, but there's just so much on this movie's mind about needing purpose in life, and it's about love and how you need it. It's about the class divide and how the upper class pits the lower classes against each other. It's about the importance of art and how art comes from lived experiences. That's the authenticity of art is what makes it so special. It's also about the importance of authentic relationships, of needing a support system, of just needing family and love. Like, there's just so much to this movie, and it's thoughtful, and I love how everyone is given a chance to do better, but they give it up because at the end of the day, money and status is not the most important thing. I think it's a very profound movie, and yeah, it's just one that I loved it when I first watched it, and I love it even more now. It's just so ambitious, it's so out there, it's so weird, it's so funny, it's so emotional, but it's also brilliant. So that's why it's my second favorite movie of 2023. But then we get to my favorite movie of 2023, and this movie is just exceptional. I love it, and it's one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Let's begin talking about the animation. It's outstanding, it's revolutionary, it's unlike anything else I've ever seen. The way Gwen's world looks at the beginning of this movie is just beautiful. The dripping paints, the changing colors, it is just, it blew my mind from the get-go. Oh, like even the drum solo at the start and just the use of colors and different styles. It's just, like within the first 5 minutes, my jaw was on the floor and it never stopped impressing me. Like, you've got different animation styles existing at the same time, different characters moving at different frame rates, the use of colors. Like, it's so ambitious, and it's just fully pays off. Like, just completely. Like, this movie is a work of art. And I just love the style and the vibe of this movie. You know, just Grin and Miles swinging around the city. I love the shot where Gwen is walking upside down and everything moves upside down with her. That is just one of my favorite shots ever. The soundtrack is great. Okay, Self Love is a 10 out of 10 song. Like, it is my favorite song of 2023, but like, it never took off, which is just baffling to me. But it's just the perfect vibe. I love that song. Am I Dreaming is really fantastic. Another Dimension, Hummingbird, Annihilate, Calling, Mona Lisa. The soundtrack, all exceptional. The score by Daniel Pemberton is just phenomenal. It is one of my favorite scores of all time. I love Gwen's theme. It's iconic. The Spots theme just builds this sense of dread so perfectly. The train chase is outstanding. The ending, it just, the music elevates each and every single moment. And on top of that, I think the story's fantastic. Gwen's character arc is filled with emotion, and it's just very thoughtful. And I love how they use her story to set up Miles' story as well. Like, what's at risk for Miles. How Gwen got rejected by her dad, and how that could happen to Miles. But we also see that desire for Miles to come clean to his parents, and it's just him struggling, and it's just so well handled. I love how it's about kids becoming their own person and how that affects the people around them, especially their parents. You know, the fear, the need for acceptance, the lack of understanding, the lack of communication, it's all here. It's also about the lies we tell people to protect us. And I also love how not only does Miles struggle with his parents, but they struggle with him. And it just, every character, every relationship felt so fully realized and thought out, and it's just filled with emotion. But then it can also be weird and out there. You know, it's just a movie that takes so many risks. You got a Spider T-Rex. Like, how insane is that? You've got a Spider Cat, which is just fantastic. And then the way it sets up the sequel is perfection. It gets you amped up, it gets you ready to see more. And I thought Spot was just a fantastic villain. How he starts off as a joke, but then he becomes a real threat by the end. Like, I can't think of a single other villain that managed to do that. The action is really great. It's so fast paced, it's so snippy that you can miss it, but it's very entertaining. It's hilarious. This movie makes me laugh plenty of times. Like I said, it's emotional. The movie gets you to tear up a few times. And the performances are fantastic. Shamik Moore just perfect as Miles Morales. But Haley Steinfeld is the standout to me, and if it was up to me, she would have been nominated, maybe win an Oscar for her performance here. She just brings so much humanity to this character, and I was really impressed by her work. Brian Tyree Henry, I think, does a really great job. Lauren Velez, I think, is outstanding as well. Jake Johnson is really great. Jason Schwartzman, I love him. Issa Rae, I think, is really good. Karen Soni, really great. Like, they take so many characters and they're memorable. They stand out. Daniel Kaluuya as Spider-Punk was hilarious. Shai Wiggum, I think, is great. Oscar Isaac, everything with him, I thought was really great. So, yeah, this movie works for me, like, artistically, as a bit of storytelling. Like, this movie just gives you everything you could possibly want from a movie like this. It's weird, it's out there, it's big, it's ambitious, it's also personal and emotional. It's beautiful to look at. It's got great song choices, great music. It's filled with great characters. It's emotional. It's just perfect. Like, I saw this movie 4 times in theaters, 5 times, 4 times, I think, and it just never stops being great. I think it's just one of the best superhero movies ever made, and you know what? I'll say it. I think it's one of the best movies ever made. I could talk about forever, but it's time for this video to end. So that's why Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is my favorite movie of 2023. But that's my list. What's your list look like? Tell me your favorite movies of 2023 in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos soon. And Gavin, out.